I worked for the post office, so it was mail. I did make one phone call from the Capitol of Sewell. They had a phone booth in that place, and I'll never forget it. I made a phone call from there. I called my girlfriend up at that time. And when I got out, we got married, and the day before yesterday, I was married 64 years to the same person.
Wrote letters. They got there. Maybe it'd take a month, but they got them.
I was there from 1974 to 75, so it was still letters is how we did. But my job as a radio systems officer was also, I also ran the Dial Central office and the switchboard for Camp Humphreys. And as a result of my position there in my BOQ, Bachelor Officers Quarters, I had a telephone, and that telephone was listed as a Class A, which means that I could dial home. Nobody else could. So I did take a couple of opportunities to call Ma and let her know how I was doing.
Did you see
by
it?
letter? I'm not sure how long it took the letters to get home, because this is 1959. But the fellows that were there during the war, I think it was 30 days for a letter to get home and 30 days for them to reply back. I think I was about maybe 2 weeks a letter.
That was a fairly lengthy process. It was all handwritten letters at that time, and I'm sure it took a couple weeks to get back home, and then by the time you got a reply, it might be a couple weeks later. So it wasn't up to the minute news, but we could correspond that way. I took a lot of pictures, sent a lot of pictures home, and I did get to Japan on leave twice for a week each time. And one of those times I was in Japan, I called home. You couldn't do it from Korea, but I called home from Japan, reversed the charges, of course. We never had a lot of money. And I have no idea what time it was, probably the middle of the night there. I know it's a different day, you're on the other side of the international date line. But I did talk to my folks briefly at that time. At the time, as I recall, I think it cost about $3 a minute. It was not inexpensive. I mean, yeah, fairly costly, but it was the one time I did speak directly to the folks.
Well, that was basically a one-item way. It's not like today where you can pick up a cell phone or an iPad and talk and see each other back and forth. We wrote letters. Since we were in a combat zone, we could mail the letters. We would write up in the corner where you normally would put a stamp. We would write free airmail, and it came from the APO, Army Post Office, which designated that it was a free email. And even though when email, it took about 3 weeks for your mail to get home, and the same way for you to get your mail, it was basically 3 weeks. You didn't get mail every day. Usually we would get it 3 times a week. Sometimes you might get 5 or 6 letters, and sometimes you might go 2 or 3 days without it. The only time, other than the mail, the only time I ever communicated with my family, my mom and dad, was one of my R&Rs to Japan. I was able to place a call home, and I did speak to them for a few minutes. But other than that, it was almost 17 months without actually talking to anybody in my family.
Through letters. You know, back then we didn't have email or anything like that, and even telephone was very difficult simply because the Korean telephone system was bad, and most of the phones that we had, you know, we couldn't even call overseas with. So it was mostly by letters.
Yeah.
Letters, and they were really important. My sister still knows my serial number. When I get my Christmas card from her, she lives over in Delaware, and when I get my Christmas card or birthday card from her, she'll put on to brother at my address and my serial number on. She still remembers my serial number. And the letters were so important because you got the package with the candles. That was about just about all the light you had in your outposts and bunkers, the candles.
Oh, we went to Japan. I went to Tokyo both times. They had an army hotel there where I stayed at, and I do not recall the name of it, but it was in Tokyo. On the way back to the United States, the ship put into Yokohama, and we spent an overnight in Yokohama. But other than that, the R&Rs, one was R&R, and one I took 7 days leave of my own leave, and the 2 weeks I did spend in Japan. Living was very good there in Japan at the time because the conversion rate was 360 yen per dollar. Right now it's about 110, markedly different. But your dollar went a long ways, what few dollars you had, of course.
What we would do, you after a certain number of days, you were selected to go on R&R. And R&R was a great thing for several reasons. First of all, where we were on the DMZ, we did not have shower facilities or anything like that. So we went quite a long time without getting a shower. So when we would go on R&R, on the way, they would make sure that you were showered and cleaned up before they would put you on a plane. So we would go to Seoul, get showered up and so on, go on a plane at Kimpo Air Base in Seoul, flew over to Japan to Tachikawa Air Base, which during World War II was a big Japanese air base, which was now converted into a U.S. base. I only went to Yokohama and Tokyo on my R&Rs. I didn't go anywhere else in Japan.
I didn't ever get any R&Rs. All we've got were like our regiment would come offline and go 2 or 3 mountains back.
Would you do it?
I went to a place called Walker Hill. I'd like to go back there. As a matter of fact, I'm in the process of working with Return to Korea program that they have, and I'll get a chance to go back. But Walker Hill was the best that we had in Korea for R&R. And it was a nice little hotel, and not too many people from Korea that I was aware of during the time that I was there actually went any further than that. I was there from 1967 through 1968.
While I was there, I had no R&R. My R&R consisted of 3 weeks confined to barracks because I had pneumonia, followed by a further plea to my company commander that I be allowed to attend a Catholic retreat in Seoul for a week, which he finally knuckled under and let me go. So prior to that, I had been working 12-hour days, 6 days a week, and it gets to you after a while.
They had R&R back then to go to Japan, and a couple of times I did some demolition work. We were coming back up off the hill, and the next bunch of Marines were coming up, and they'd say, "Where's Handon? He's over there." And they'd say, "Will you stay with us? We don't have our demolition man." So I never got R&R in Japan. So there was a time when I stayed on the front line for 3 months. I couldn't get off of it because they wanted a demolition man.
Wow.
So you can't say no to that.
Yeah. Wow.